abducted. Maybe E.T. never went home. Join me, Rob McConnell, for another story from the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology when next we meet in the X Zone, the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard.
This is the X Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome to another edition of the X Zone. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, and around the world on the Starcom Radio Network. Worldwide toll-free 800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X Zone Radio TV. And our main website where you can actually listen to the X Zone, 724-365, www.xzoneradiotv.com. Wow. You know, it's still a couple of days since we were back here in Hamilton from spending 3 wonderful days in Brantford, Ontario at the Alien Cosmic Expo, and I'm still getting emails from all over the place. Thank you very much. It was great seeing you too. To all the members of the Exo Nation that showed up to see us, our many thanks, and we appreciate your comments. We appreciate your suggestions, and that's what we do here. We listen to our worldwide audience. So once again, thank you, everyone. Thank you. Let me see. We have so many people. Thank Joanne, Edie, and Heather Masters from the Alien Cosmic Expo. My director of the pay-per-view production, Steve Benedict, Christian Benedict, who was our production assistant, Laura Rogers, who was in the Hillier room on camera one, Terry from Scotia Entertainment, Michael from the Best Western Hotel. You know, so many people to thank, but once again, the thank goes out to you, the members of the Exo Nation, as well as Steve Turner and Nick Tunney at Simul TV and IMN Systems in Virginia. Wow. Here we are. What's the date today, Craig? Tuesday, June the 30th, 2015, the last day of the month of June. And summer's underway, and it's always a good time for families to prepare themselves for the what-if factor. Listen to this, explanation. A huge fault in the Earth's crust near Los Angeles is leaking helium. This is something that researchers have just found out. They say the unexpected find sheds new light on the Newport-Inglewood fault zone in Los Angeles Basin. It reveals the fault is far deeper than previously thought, and a quake would be far more devastating. It follows a report from the U.S. Geological Survey that has warned the risk of the big one hitting California has increased dramatically. This is all we need. This is great news. Well, it's better to be forewarned and prepared, and that's why this hour we have Anthony KOVIC with us. He's the nation's top disaster expert. His experiences to discuss what you can do to be prepared for disaster and how it will help dealing with adverse situations when they arise. Joining me now is Anthony KOVIC. And Anthony, welcome to the X Zone.
Thank you for having me on, Rob.
It's a great pleasure. Tell me, how did you get into emergency preparedness? My gosh, you've done so many things. Let me see. You're the author of multiple books. You're an expert in production and broadcasting, host of several live television shows. And yet here you are, an expert in disaster preparedness. Hats off to you, but how do you do it?
Well, how I do it is that, living in Florida, we've had that kind of experience that you can't really you can't be overqualified to be prepared in this state with hurricanes that we've had to deal with over the years, back to back, year after year. We've been fortunate over the last few years that we've not had any. We've had a normal weather pattern, and fortunately that has saved us from violent weather in the last few years. But, anything can change over time. So that's why even the simple preparedness is, people look at being prepared as stocking up a bunker, doing all the things that you see on drama TV that makes it look really fun and cool for TV. But being prepared is like having a savings account, the kind of savings account that you don't have to run out and purchase supplies when the shelves are empty. That kind of preparedness.
Well, unless you're living in Greece and you can't get the money that's in your bank account anyway.
Yes.
Let me ask you, is America ready to deal with a major natural disaster?
Is America really capable of that? We are always ready and able. Unfortunately, we're never ready and able beforehand. These disasters come at a moment's notice. It really takes, we as Americans wait till after, the big thing happens before we all get excited, and funding comes in from, the black hole of funding, where like, wow, look, $3 billion showed up somewhere. So that kind of money is hard to, allocate in advance for all the things that we want. And every part of the country has what we would call their problem areas. Some areas is heavy snow. Some areas is hurricanes. Some areas is tornadoes. Some areas live next to dams that are not properly maintained. Some areas live next to fault lines like California, where the Adriatic Fault has, a place that, that can just break open at any time. Now it's leaking helium. So anything can happen anywhere, and it's best that we be aware of the places we move to. We are a mobile society. The United States, we're a mobile society. People live from California to New York. They fly around. They get jobs here, there, and they move wherever it is that they go to. But few people realize that every area has its problems. So when you move into the area, you should look at, what is the problem here? Oh, wow, moving just below a dam may not be the right thing to do. Or living right at the edge of the fault line may not be the right place. Living in a tornado alley, maybe you should consider another option, whether you take that job and move your family there.
Exactly.
Especially if it's an area that's newly developed into the zones that are prone for that purpose.
When I look back over the past couple of years, the BP oil disaster in the Gulf of Mexico. We had this year major flooding in Texas. And then years ago, what happened in New Orleans. And it seems that it's getting harder and harder to prepare for these natural disasters, let alone what we could be facing with terrorism, the possibility of nuclear war, and, solar flare activity from the sun. So how does one get started in preparing for disasters in general? Or does each disaster have its own way of getting prepared for?
Each disaster has its own way of being prepared for. But you want to be prepared for the basics, meaning having supplies on a rotating basis in your home. Canned goods are the best option. Canned soups are the best option. Water supplies is always good. Water filtration system has gotten very inexpensive now, where, you can, as long as there's a puddle of water, it doesn't matter how filthy it is. These little $100 units are good for hundreds of gallons that will filter out all the microbes and stuff like that. Let's say you had to go that extent. But most of the time, the book is designed for the average, city dweller, meaning if you're living on the high rise on the 50th floor or the 20th floor, you don't have, when the power goes out, you can't put a generator out on the porch because you don't have a porch. Mm-hmm. So you have to have enough supplies because in the cities, everything clears out immediately. Every hurricane that we've had in the area, when the power went down, everything clears the shelf as the notices start coming out. The hurricane is on its way. We got 1 day, 2 days in advance. As it gets closer to everything closes up almost. As soon as the hurricane hits the area within a certain amount of miles, almost everything closes. And just before that, all the shelves of the obvious food groups disappear. There's nothing there. And the bigger the city, the quicker all of that goes away because our distribution system is so perfect, meaning you pull one item at the grocery store and the scanner, once you walk out, once you get your stuff scanned, the system knows what is missing. And instantly people show up, out of nowhere and replenish everything the next day or during that day or however their schedule is. And these systems are designed where various vendors of different companies. So if these people evacuate, guess what happens? They don't show up at the store to restock.
Really?
And that's what happens. Of course. Once people start evacuating, if let's say you were the driver of the truck that brought all the stuff to the distribution center and 3 out of the, let's say, 5 drivers did not show up that week because they evacuated, guess what? You're going to have shortages. And it's being prepared for the few days before, having all that ready.
Right.
During the storm and the whatever the disaster is, nothing happens, and it takes weeks, depending on the severity, how long everything gets back to some kind of normalcy. And that's where the problem is. So you need to have at least 15 days of on-hand supplies that is portable. Because if having a bunker full of supplies that you have to evacuate from, it's not going to help you that much.
So what would you suggest? You've said water, you've said soup. What other supplies would you suggest that people put in a preparedness kit, a basic preparedness kit?
Yeah, I mean, your dried food stuff, number one, like your beef jerkies, all those things have a good long shelf life. Anything that has a shelf life of at least a year to 2 that you rotate, it's got to be stuff you rotate. It's got to be stuff you eat on a regular basis. So today's canned goods have come a long way from, your old can of Spam, so to speak. But Spam is still a good food. It's got all the good nutrition in it. It's ready to eat. You pop it open, and it's good to go. And it's got to be stuff that you do not have to mix. You don't need a recipe. You should not have a need for a recipe when you're on the road with canned goods. You don't want to mix this stuff up. You want to have it all prepared. You pop it open. Even if you don't have, it's already pre-cooked. It's ready to eat as soon as you pop the self-opening can, and you're ready to go. You put it on a cup or a bowl. You got your spoon. Let's say you don't even have any of that stuff. You just have the can that you can pop open. You can eat right out of the can. So the ability for you to be mobile is very important if you've been asked and told to evacuate because of whatever circumstance. That could be anywhere. It could be whether it's winter someplace and you got 20 feet of snow, whether it's hurricanes, whether it's tornadoes, whatever it is. If you have to evacuate on a moment's notice, it is easy to throw this stuff in the back of your trunk and bail out of town and have your plan ready. Now, the second thing is having that plan ready. Where would you evacuate to? What areas is high ground if you're in a low area like New Orleans? When the dam busted, all of that space, if you lived in a place that is surrounded with walls to keep the water out, that's your first clue. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if one of those things busted, where do you go? You should know where the high ground is so you can get out of there. When something is happening, okay, this doesn't look like this looks like a really bad storm. It's on the news all day long and it's vicious out there. If one of those things busted, what would happen? This whole place would be flooded. I should know where the high ground is. Now, forget that it's New Orleans. It could be anywhere. You could be, on the edge of a dam somewhere where you're on the low ground of that dam breaking.
Mm-hmm.
And if the storm, when you hear you hear it all the time, the levee's about to crest, you got 2 feet left and the rain is coming down like cats and dogs. You should know these things. Like, wow, I live just above that, just below that levee, and it's already about to go over. If one of those things was to break, this whole space would be flooded. I wonder if it's a good idea for me living, 2 blocks down the street from it. See what I'm saying?
Sure. Use common sense.
Common sense is the extreme, this is all simple. I'm not saying anything's, phenomenal here. I haven't written a dissertation on, how the rocket goes up into space and comes down so this way you can be prepared when you can. No, it's very simple. Preparedness is a simple savings account that you have stored away, ready to go at a moment's notice, or in a way that you can hold out the storm until everything gets back to normal. Our emergency management people, they will do their jobs. These people are there. They will do their jobs, but you have to wait until the storm is over. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, I do, yeah. Contingency plans. They must be very important in emergency preparedness.
Exactly. Now, one of the most important things in prepping is knowing where to go first, where to go second, and where to go third. Because the worst thing in your mind, what happens is when you have loved ones and communication is down. So let's say you have a family member that is within or works within the disaster zone. Now, communications is down, so they can't communicate to you. So what's the first thing you have in your mind when the disaster hits an area and you have family there? Your mind starts thinking the worst, obviously, because we're human. We think the worst thing that could happen. So that's what happens. So important thing is to have contingency plans to be able to communicate to family members where everyone's going to go first, where everyone's going to go second, where everyone's going to go third. So this way, people can actually call in, if they can get access to a phone call and say, hey, I'm fine. I'm still in the disaster zone. We decided not to go to Uncle Bob's, but I'm calling in letting you know that we're over here at Uncle John's house, which is, location number 3 or wherever they are. So this way, everyone can communicate that they're fine, that no one has to then try to find and rescue them. Because once people start going into a disaster zone, they become part of the disaster. And now everybody has to wonder what happened to them. So what happens is people go find people, then those people show up. Hey, what happened? Oh, they went looking for you. Now they're in the disaster zone. So now they're in jeopardy. Now they're causing a problem, not only for emergency management to have to, shoo them out, so to speak, but they are now part of getting, they're putting themselves in danger to find out what happened to you. So having, A, B, and C locations, so this way everyone knows where to go first, second, and third. Obviously medications. Medications are very important. Fortunately, today we have, companies that are national, so it's easier to have a prescription in one location, and if you have a refill, you could always go to another location. And sometimes if you had a refill that you lost because of a disaster zone, and you can obviously say, hey, my place got messed up and we had to relocate, I didn't have my pills. A lot of times they'll give you a few to get past a few days. So this way you can go to your physician or a local physician and get a, proper prescription. So I've had that happen where, I didn't have a prescription, that expired, but they let me go with a couple of pills. So this way I have a few days and then I can go and, and get the proper, prescription. Obviously if it's, oxycodone or something like that, they won't give it to you. But if it's, your normal nothing prescription for something simple, normally if you had a long history of that product, they will help you out. So this way you have a couple of days of it and things like that. If you're in the winter season, places like that, you should have blankets. You should have things that are always in the trunk. So if you slide off the road and hit it, go into a ditch and you're stuck and you're unable to get out, you should have stuff in your vehicle in case you're in a situation where you're stuck long-term, overnight, and you're freezing in the middle of winter. People have a hard time just imagining themselves, because we're so used to our system working well. In the United States, we are blessed to have almost a fully lubricated system. And once in a while, just like a car, it needs maintenance. In some areas, you get that super snowstorm, and like in the Georgia, the Carolinas area, they had that ice storms.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't prepared. These cars they're not driving around with heavy snow tires. So they don't know what snow is. They seldom ever see it, never mind ice. So everybody was sliding and hitting everything. The power was going down because, they're line people that are managing things. They're not used to seeing this kind of stuff on a regular basis.
Right.
But you go up north, they see this all the time, so they know what to do. They have preparedness in place so they can avoid these problems. So each area, when a disaster hits, is mainly because they're not used to it on a regular basis.
Gotcha. Listen, Anthony, you and I have to take a small commercial break. We'll be right back. What is the website that our listeners can go to find out more information about you and how they can get copies of your books?
Yes, it's emergencyprepping.org is one of the sites, and there is just things that you can find it's a resource. It's designed to help people find stuff, look around, and enjoy.
All right, please stand by, my friend. You and I will be back in a couple of minutes. Exo Nation, Anthony KOVIC is my special guest this hour. We're talking about emergency preparedness. Remember the Boy Scouts? Be prepared. Well, it's time that we all get prepared, because as we've seen over the past couple of months and years, flooding, blizzards, hurricanes. Prepare to be prepared for the unexpected. It's a lesson we all need to learn. For more information on Anthony KOVIC and how you can get your copies of his books, Emergency Prepping, Simple Disaster Preparedness for the Modern Family, visit www.emergencyprepping.org. And we'll be back on the other side of this short commercial break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell, and you're listening to us worldwide on the Starcom Radio Network.
The new nonfiction book, Razor of Madness, is similar to cult movies like Clockwork Orange, Dragon's Tattoo, or The Other Side of Hell. Wayne Morin Jr. and Thomas Lee Howe will expose widespread and systematic deficiencies in this thought-provoking tell-all novel. Mind control rages among scholars in law schools. Human rights are ignored while thought reform and mental manipulation are accepted practices used as behavior modification. Dr. Louis Jolyon West comes to mind. Media and public scrutiny shows that United States mental hospitals are in fact destructive murder industries. Razor of Madness expose novel details this epidemic through an in-depth professional and personal investigation. For decades there has been a revolving door policy that still releases killers and pedophiles back into society. The maestro of mind control continues to haunt America to this very day. Razor of Madness is available in paperback or as a downloadable ebook at Amazon.com. One Florida drug dealer made a mistake when he dared peddle his poisons on the schoolyard of Robert W. Morgan's preteen daughter. Morgan, a budding film director, tracked him to his hidden Everglades lair where his meth lab mysteriously blew sky high. When Morgan's demands to police to make grammar school playgrounds safer from drugs were ignored, he sought the counsel of CIA operative Frank Sturgis. Again, he was warned to give up what was becoming an obsession. Instead, Robert used his reputation as a filmmaker to infiltrate the mafia by stroking their egos and offering agreeing to make films for them offshore so they could import them as foreign product without paying taxes. When they agreed to build him a studio in Panama, Robert called the DEA and FBI and offered to work undercover. In time, their combined efforts revealed how the mob was secretly laundering billions of dollars through the Vatican Bank in Rome before returning to the States as foreign investments. Now read Morgan's story, Citizen Spy, Vatican Cover-Up, the Mob, Money Laundering, and Murder, available at Amazon.com, BN.com, and Borders.com. In his new book, Wandering About, author David Strumfeld talks about the universe, existence, civilization, and the nature of mankind. Wandering About is a comprehensive guide that discusses man's everlasting struggle to learn what his place in the universe is and what the true purpose of his existence is all about. By dealing with many forms of science and humanity, Wandering About also serves as an intellectual autobiography, an expedition through author David Strumfeld's mind and his life as a human being. Through the reader's views, readers will learn many relevant things such as the development of civilization through the ages, how science helped mankind to make many crucial discoveries about the universe, why people's curiosity and imagination never get satisfied, and much more. Wandering About promises to push the reader's reasons and thinking to the very edge. To order Wandering About by David Strumfeld, go to www.wanderingabout.net. That's www.wanderingabout.net. Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses by Brad Olson, consummates the lifeology story about where humanity originates. It is the lost continents, the primitive wisdom, the mythos of creation, and the rethinking of ancient history as we are taught in academia. There is much more to the story than what we have been told. As this is the first book in the Esoteric series, Modern Esoteric starts at the beginning of time and accelerates up to this modern age. Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series and takes a forward-looking position ahead of today with an open and honest examination of the ET issue and various unexplained phenomena. To discover the writings of author Brad Olson, visit www.bradolson.com. That's www.bradolson.com.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. You're listening to us around the world on the Starcom Radio Network. Anthony KOVIC is my special guest. We're talking about emergency prepping, simple disaster preparedness for the modern family. His website is emergencyprepping.org. Anthony, when it comes to emergency preparedness, would solar energy be an alternative to running out of gas or, supplying what is needed for the bare necessities, the bare essentials when it comes to electrical power?
Absolutely. It does help, but most of those areas that solar energy would be of value, such as, the rural areas, the main problems are the local cities. I mean, we see what happens when food runs out in the cities. Like, millions of people crammed in a small space, 10, 20-story buildings, when there's only, supermarkets are not like in the rural area. They're spread out. They're all over the place where, every house is only, one unit home compared to 10, 20 stories everywhere. So that's the important factor in, solar energy. Are there technologies that could supplement in the rural areas? Yes. There's solar-powered refrigerators. There's solar-powered freezers. There's solar-powered, generators where, but all of these things are of very little value within the city limits. So you need to have, you can have battery backups, for your computer, where you have those units that keep your computer running for, for 15, 20 minutes so you can shut down and get your work stored. Those things will work very well to keep LED lighting functional, to keep your tablets working, your phones working. All of this technology can keep your technology going. So if you're on a 20-story building and you have a sizable battery backup that you keep for, to keep your stuff charged, you have a long, many days power supply to keep your bare essential equipment and things that are LED lit. Because today's LED lights, I have little LED lamps, table lamps. They use no electricity.
Yeah.
Today's television, the whole year, I have a big screen TV. The entire year only uses, $15 worth of power for the entire year as an average use. So with a battery backup plugged into it, you can actually have television in case, to keep the warnings going on. You have obviously you need batteries. Batteries are important. I try to buy stuff that has the same battery set, meaning usually AA are the most easiest to purchase. I buy them in packs of 100. So I have stacks of them, and as I use them for all the other electronics, as I run through them, I buy another 100 pack. So they're inexpensive compared to buying them when you need them. They're expensive because they're gone, and that's where the problem is. So if you prepare every week, you do your shopping and you pick up a couple of cans, a pack of batteries, very simple things, you will have a supply of stuff. Now, some people will need to go out and buy water and buy enough supplies. Usually water is the first thing to disappear off the shelves. But you can have empty bottles and just fill it from the tap. Very simple. Now, most of the time the tap continues to run. But if it stops running because the power goes out with the water company, they can't pump. Therefore, the tap goes out. Guess what? Now you got no water. So even having empty bottles that you can easily move around the house, throw up in the attic or something like that, or in the garage, or underneath the bed, if they're empty, you could always fill them up and have a whole pile of water as a supply. Even tap water is fine, on a moment's notice. Water is water, even if it's tap. When you really need water, you'll drink it anyway, even if it has that taste.
Yeah. And of course, for listeners who live in rural areas and who have their own wells, is there a difference in the safety of the water when it comes from a well compared to city delivered water?
I mean, city delivered water is, everywhere it's safe. There's no water that's not safe. Now, do we like it? Is it chemically managed, meaning it is pH balanced to be at proper pH? They use chemicals for that. Do they have fluoride in it? Does it have all these things that some people think that is no good? They'd rather have bottled water. Well, most bottled water comes from a city tap someplace. They just put it through a different filter, few layers of filter, and therefore now it's bottled water. Because the only thing that is legal about bottled water is in a bottle. That's it. Water in a bottle. That's all it is. In your opinion,
in your expert opinion, what are the most important things we need to worry about in preparing for severe weather?
Now, one of the things that people overlook this. and that is being a part of your local community.
Mm.
You know, knowing your community, because some people prepare and build a bunker and all this other stuff. All that is great, but that's only you being prepared.
That's right.
Now, you're going to have to live in a place. So let's say your house is great. You live in the bunker. You have a whole supplies of stuff. So you can last, let's say, a year. But if your whole community is disaster prone and completely wrecked, you know, what are you going to live in? Everybody's leaving. So what I tell people is that being prepared also includes being prepared in your community. Are you part of what's happening in your local government? How are they prepared? Are you showing up at your local county commission, city council meetings? Whether you're in a big city or in a small town, all of these things, most people don't even watch their stuff to know what's going on. They don't know who even their representatives are. They don't even check, because all of this stuff is available online. You can watch the rebroadcast online and see what's been happening and what's happening. And if you watch any of this stuff, you see 3, 4, 5 people when they pan into the audience. It's the same 3, 4, 5 people almost every meeting.
Right.
Unless something happens where everybody gets excited. But guess what? You know who makes the decisions for you? The same 3, 4, 5 people. When you wonder, how did this organization, our council, how did they make these decisions? Well, there were 4 people there that communicated to them of what they thought was good or whatever, and that's what their basis of knowledge was. I'm sure there's more knowledge there, but the reality is, in Florida, it's illegal for county commissions to talk amongst each other, the county business, unless it's in the open forum in front of the county commission on the board. So they could only communicate and debate only what is they're listening to, meaning the public. They themselves cannot communicate with themselves or debate over what the issue is. So what happens is, a bill comes up, 3 people, the 3 people that always comes up and complain are the ones that make the comments, and everybody else stands by. And then on the newspaper the next day, this is what happened, and everybody wonders, we don't have this and we don't have that. Well, if you don't show up and participate, if you take so much time to build a bunker, you could take a portion of that time to be a part of your community and make sure that the rest of your fellow neighbors have an understanding of what's taking place and know what the county, what your city, what your municipality is doing in case something does happen. Because we all know what our problems are in an area.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And if people participate, even just by one meeting, just by even emailing your representatives, hey, what's happening in preparedness for this issue that comes up every few years? What are we doing? How are we prepared? They'll tell you. And if they have nothing to offer, guess what? You need to make some calls and get a couple of people showing up and start putting together a group. You can do it. It's not that difficult. It is part of our system. But people always think that somebody else, some agency called FEMA, is going to show up at your local county on the minute you need something, and they're going to have your can of soup with your bottle of water and a spoon for you during the storm. No, they're not going to be there until days and weeks later, possibly, if ever.
But, I think a lot of people put way too much faith in FEMA and other federally run agencies. And it seems that the agencies like the Red Feather and the Salvation Army are there when people need them.
Yeah, they're more mobile because they don't have to deal with the bureaucracy that this is what happens. And you see this every time on television. You see, if it's a disaster that everybody likes, you will see everybody jockeying to be the person speaking, right?
Yeah, that's right.
They're all there behind the podium, and they're all there. Now, if you look back at the New Orleans situation when Ray Nagin was always up there, forced to be on camera, there was never anybody behind them. And if they were there, they were probably there at gunpoint. You see what I'm saying?
I hear you. So,
You can tell when it's a good disaster. There's a whole crowd of people behind the person speaking, and everybody's jockeying to be the person to get the accolades of what's happening. You know, like if you watch some of the old hurricane footage in the state of Florida, you will see Jeb Bush and a crowd of people constantly talking about what's happening, each representative from this area, that area, boom, because it's been managed correctly. Now, if you watch, as I said earlier, the Reagan footage, you know, you don't see any of the important dignitaries wanting to get on camera. You see?
Yeah.
That's the difference between a prepared group of people and an unprepared, and when it's a disaster's gone bad, no one wants to be on camera, the person that everybody wants to talk to, because they're all running away from the cameras. That's the difference. So it's important that if your organization, if your community is not prepared, it doesn't take much to set up a little group and organize it, have weekly, monthly meetings. Hey, what's going on? Who's going to go to the local county commission and make these points? Who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? And you know what? After a while, you will have a small group that's proactive in making sure that their community doesn't go. Because what happens when, you know, places in Florida that had those big hurricanes during the, you know, years ago, they're still now just recovering.
Oh, my Lord.
Because people decide to leave. If your community is not prepared and they leave the area, the businesses are the first to go. The people that have, you know, they're already affluent, they're the first to leave. They'll relocate. So what's left, it takes time for then the community to start building again, because all of the businesses have relocated. And in emergency prepping, you know, part of it is business prepping. So let's say you're a plumbing company and you have 5 trucks, or a moving company with 10 trucks, and you know you don't want your equipment all in the same place. You have your drivers. Okay, Joe, you're relocating to your aunt in Nebraska or something. Yeah, okay. I want you to take this truck with all this gear and you go that way. You're locating over there. Okay, very good. You take that truck. So let's say when you come back, your building is wrecked. You know, you still have all your trucks and tools in it. You can continue to do business and maintain your company and employees. But if your trucks have disappeared, what happens? Yes,
right.
You may have insurance, right? We all have insurance. You may have it all be covered. But guess how long that's going to take? So now your employees are out of work. You can't afford to maintain them. By the time the truck is purchased again, by the time you purchase all the necessary tools to do your business, you've lost the momentum of being in business. Because every day that goes by, you're not filling your job's requirements. They're calling someone else. So is your data there? Many of the companies on 9/11, most of their problem was all the data was all in the Twin Towers.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't even know who any of their companies were, who their clients were. All disappeared. There's no phone number, no nothing. So that's one of the many companies just went out of business because even though their employees were there, they could have still done business, but they didn't know who even could do business with because it was all the data was in that location and it was all in smoke.
So is it better to have all this data in a company that offers you the cloud data systems?
That is those are options to really consider. The security, of your data, obviously.
Sure.
Is it backed up off-site? More and more companies have come out with various cloud-based, data storage and management. So this way, your computers are just dumb terminals, or just people logging in. Even though it may not be a dumb terminal, you're logging in, and the data's coming over the internet from several locations that are backed up. You see some things like some of the cloud services. You can choose where you want your primary data to be: the United States, second Singapore. You want it backed up, mirrored on a regular basis. However, so all these things are now available because a lot of companies have learned their lessons from what took place on 9/11. That so many of those billion-dollar companies just all their data was gone. And even though they had their employees and they could have been in business the next day, if they had their data stored elsewhere, they didn't know who to talk to. They didn't know who to call. They didn't know who any of their clients were because there were so many, and all of them were electronically someplace everywhere in the world.
Excellent.
That's
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going.
And that's
All right, Anthony. Go ahead. Go ahead, Anthony.
All right. So what happens is having your data secured and making sure that your employees have a place to come to is part of prepping. Yes, if some of your employees will leave the town, leave the area if they're told to evacuate. But a contingency plan on how to get back to business is just as important for that company to be prepared as it is for those people who are employed by the company to, listen to the authorities and evacuate, as well as for them to be prepared. So coming back is a system. So how do you come back? Let's say all your employees relocated and you shut down for the emergency. Guess what? How do you make sure that everybody comes back and continuing the company's ability to do business and have those employees still collecting a paycheck? It's important that small companies who are in that situation have a prepared plan, not only for themselves, but prepare their employees so their ability to come back is also intact, because it's so hard to find the right employees to do the right jobs for them and train them when you have now, if a disaster took place, guess what? Your company's business may be quadrupling, but if your employees left, even that quadrupling is useless because, how are you going to maintain these services without the equipment?
Exactly.
So
I was just going to say, it seems that people really need to honestly sit down not only with the members of their family but their community and prepare for what could happen so that they are prepared, they're not caught with their pants down, and they have a plan.
It's absolutely a simple, and it doesn't have to be like this, $10,000 plan per family type thing. Just a simple, worksheet. Where to go first? Who needs medication? Where do we go second?
Yeah.
All of these little things. If every time, you task the family member who does the shopping, from now on, buy 1 or 2 items of canned goods. This is what we like. Let's make sure we have X amount on stock on a regular basis that we rotate, so this way it's always fresh. We never have to think about opening a can. It's like worms in it. We don't want maggots inside the cans that are sitting there for 3 years. It's got to be stuff you enjoy, you eat, you rotate. Bottled water, obviously important if you need to be mobile. Sometimes there might be gasoline. Do you have, the gas tanks, the portable gas tanks, that are safe, designed to be able to carry? Because if you're in evacuation, people like in the Keys have to evacuate hundreds of miles. And the biggest problem is, people run out of gas on the roads, and, the tow trucks are having to move people and fill them full of gas, give them a few gallons of gas to get to the next place. So you got to know how far you are, have the proper tank. So if you're in the Keys and you evacuate, and guess what? You got a long distance. You need to have enough fuel to get to where you're going, and you can't wait till the last minute, because every gallon of gas in every gas tank in every service station will be empty almost within a short period of time. And that's what happens. I remember when Jeb Bush and we had the gas problem. They had to have tankers give them police escorts so they can go to various communities to start filling up the tanks with gas so people would have gas again. You see what I'm saying? So people do this. Emergency management in a state, a county, a city, they all have a preparedness system. Some of them have yearly, annual, preparedness drills where different agencies all come together in one facility. So they all are right there in front of each other talking, and knowing what's happening. Okay, the electric guy is here, the fuel company, the whatever, all these people are there at one place talking business. So this way, when something happens, the communication goes out. So how do I reach this guy that's 10 blocks away? You can't. So they have these centralized emergency management system, like the Tampa has one, and every year they do their drills, and all of the emergency management people show up from different departments, and that's their job. When something happens, their job is to locate there. You can't be at your office. You have to be there, and that's a good thing. So we are learning from these things, but it requires people to say, hey, are we doing this? Oh, we're not? Why not? So let's put together something that makes this happen. And it doesn't take much for community-minded people to convince their local officials to actually do it and put together a small budget to make certain things happen. It's doable, it's easy, and it doesn't require much work. But it does require some dedication.
Sure. Anthony, we're coming up very fast to the time where you and I have to say so long. But before we go, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about your upcoming book, Home Efficiency, How to Use Simple Technology Extends the Reach of Your Hardworking Dollars. When is it going to be available?
Oh, yeah. It's one of those multi-projects that I have in place, and it's designed how to utilize simple things that really, today's modern person is so doing everything that just uses up energy.
Yeah.
One of the things that, just reducing the heat in your attic by adding solar fans in your attic makes a big difference, because you have a constant mechanical airflow that the free energy of solar will keep flowing the hot air out of your attic faster than, just reducing that by 10, 15 degrees on a steady basis makes a huge difference in your air conditioning bill, especially, for us in Florida.
Sure.
Now, cold water, when washing clothes, you have cold water detergents now are really effective compared to many years ago, where you have to wash everything in hot water. So there are lots of clothes that are cold water. So instead of washing with hot, where you have to now drain your hot water tank to go into your hot water, into your washing machine. So you're not only using the electricity to wash your clothes, but you're pulling all the hot water out. So now your heater is actually running at 9,000 BTUs. So that makes a little bit of difference over the year. How many times you do this? So these are kind of home efficiencies that are simple to do, easy to manage, and you don't really have to change your lifestyle for it.
What is your message for the worldwide listening audience of the X-Zone Nation tonight, Anthony?
A simple preparedness understanding. If you just think about it in the sense that every time you go to the supermarket, every time you do little things, why don't I get a couple of cans of food every time? Why don't I get a couple of extra packs of batteries and put together a stockpile? Should I have a kit? When you go to, let's say you have to relocate to a family,
right?
Do you have sleeping bags? You don't want to show up at your uncle's house, your brother's house, with 4 family members with nothing but the clothes on your back, because now it's like, we don't have that much supplies. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So when you team up with a couple of families in your area, it might be your neighbor, it might be, your uncle. You try to find people spread out enough so this way one can be the backup for each, So just simple preparedness. Just have underneath your bed, 100 cans of soup. You don't need that many, depending on your family size. This stuff rotates. It's easy. It doesn't require, it's a small savings account dedicated to just having supplies on hand in case you need it.
Anthony, I want to thank you so much for joining us. It's a great pleasure sharing with you. Continued success. I look forward to getting a copy of your new book when it comes out. And the door is always open for you here in the X-Zone. So until the next time you and I meet, thank you so much. Have a safe day. And X-Zone Nation, if you'd like to get more information on Anthony Novak, visit his website, www.emergencyprepping.org. Now, I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we talk about Remembering Olympus. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard, and we're heard Monday through Friday from 8 until midnight. Where? Right here and around the world on the Starcom Radio Network. Don't forget to check out my good friend Ed Till, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. on Starcom. We'll be back. Don't go away.
Back in Victorian England, a famous theologian posed a perplexing riddle. Why are the two top personalities in the Bible tagged with the numbers 7 and 11? Academics agree the answer is found in the stunning discovery of a hitherto secret Bible structure explained in a new book called The Genesis Grid. The discovery is so simple that preschool children could illustrate it. Certain claims are hugely controversial and may offend some, but at the X Zone, we've studied this awesome new book and agree with one expert, and I quote, "These discoveries appear to be beyond coincidence." So who or what hid this wonderful pattern in the Bible, and what might they do next? Find out more, X Zone Nation, and read reviews on www.genesisgrid.co.uk. That's www.genesisgrid.co.uk. With each new extreme weather event or terrorist act, it becomes increasingly obvious that we live in uncertain and challenging times. We all buy car insurance. Why not collapse and catastrophe insurance? Matthew Stein, an MIT-trained engineer and green builder, has written 2 outstanding books to help people prepare, plan for, and deal with everything from minor situations lasting a few days to full-on collapse. Matt's first book, When Technology Fails, is a manual for self-reliance, sustainable living, and surviving the long emergency. This massive book covers the gamut from first aid and emergency preparedness to alternative healing, renewable energy, primitive living skills, and 18th century technologies that could be critical to your comfort and survival in a long-lasting crisis. Matt's second book, When Disaster Strikes, is a comprehensive emergency preparedness handbook and survival guide. When Disaster Strikes is an essential item for every family's go bag. Both books are available at all usual sources. There's a wealth of totally free information posted at whentechfails.com, and author-signed copies may be purchased at mattstein.com. That's www.whentechfails.com and www.mattstein.com. If you are looking for a safe, zero-calorie, natural option to the harmful artificial sweeteners on the market today, Just Like Sugar is what you're looking for. Just Like Sugar is a wonderful natural alternative for those health-conscious people who choose a calorie-restricted diet with a great, pure, sweet flavor that tastes just like sugar. Just Like Sugar is a great natural option for people suffering from diabetes and may be useful in restricted diet programs where standard sugars are not allowed and does not cause a laxative effect of some other sweeteners. Just Like Sugar comprises a perfect blend of chicory root fiber, natural calcium, natural vitamin C, and Just Like Sugar's sweetness comes from the natural flavors from the peel of the orange. Just Like Sugar is a natural alternative to harmful artificial sweeteners and will change the way that you believe all natural sweetener products taste. Just Like Sugar is available at your local Whole Foods markets, Wild Oats markets, Henry's, Sun Harvest, and many other fine natural food stores in the U.S., Canada, and worldwide.
Have you exhausted all traditional means of healing without success? Are you experiencing communications through ghosts, angels, or even extraterrestrials and want to validate these experiences? Or would you simply like to speak with someone who can help you find your life's purpose? I'm Dr. Joseph Mara, and I'm offering my services to humanity at this time through consultations. These consultations include angel card readings, guided meditations, life coaching, and energy healing. If you desire clarity of what may appear to be unexplainable phenomenon, then contact me through my website at aguidinglight, spelled Lite.com, to schedule your consultation today. Until then, I offer you love, light, and laughter.
Manifestation is driven by imagination, intent, and passion. In our culture, all three have been distorted and disabled by modern media and exploitation. Re-engage your imagination and your passion by entering into the world of paranormal romance. Kahir O'Donnell takes her readers on an exciting journey into the endless possibilities of loving, passionate, and mutually respectful male-female relationship. Her latest book, The Long Dark Night, features special ops adventure, a daring rescue, a psychic woman from the stars, and a special agent that will die to protect her. The Long Dark Night by Kahira O'Donnell is now available at KahiraO'Donnell.com or Amazon.com. Fartlets, fartlings, pongies, and honkers. They have so many names, makes you go bonkers. Rear tempest, butt bubbles, bottom burps, all aside. Why does it smell like a little rat died? Hail the fart, whenever, wherever, whoever. Its existence actually enriches our lives because it gives us those unforgettable moments that we can all recall again and again that are always good for yet another laugh. A new expose on farting. Get your copy of The Endearing Fart by Eileen Dover at www.theendearingfart.com.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.